If you need to sell your house, when's the best time to market it? It's when it's on the market.
I generally don't think you can actually undervalue something. I think ultimately if a property is worth 525 and you pitch it at 500, if it's worth 525, if you effectively market it and you have a strategy behind it, you will get 525.
Also, I don't understand if you go out and say that a house should be marketed for X price and the seller says, right, we want to go with you, but actually can we try it a bit higher? Why you would say yes to that?
If you were looking for a property and you see that it was reduced, what is the view of the buyer? Chris from Harrison's Homes and
Liz from Harrison's Homes.
we are approaching the end of July 2025, and we wanted to give a sort of an update on the market, because there's a lot of speculation about what the market's doing. There's a lot of negatives in regards to what agents are saying at the moment. The market's not as great as what they think, and I just think we just wanted to sort of dissect that a little bit, didn't we? So what's your views on the market at the moment?
Well, so I'm hearing a lot of negativity coming out. A lot of people are being advised to wait until September when all the buyers are going to magically come back to the market. Buyers are still there, they're there now. They tend to be the more motivated buyers that are actually going to put an offer in and buy a property. We're still selling houses. Why would you wait until September when there's more competition?
And are you saying, is this more people that are not on the market at the moment waiting until September, or is it what?
Both. Some that are not on the market are being told not to start marketing it until September. Others are being told to withdraw it and come back in September. And ones that are on the market are being told, well, it'll pick up in September.
So that's really interesting, because if I was looking to sell my home at the moment, what I would be looking at is there any similar properties on the market like mine at this very moment in time? For instance, if you've got 10 3-bed semis that are on the market, all very similar, and you're the 11th one and they're not all selling, you've either got, you could hold off, or the only way that you potentially got of selling it then is probably pricing it quite keenly. If you've got a 3-bed semi at the moment and there's nothing else on the market at the moment, then there are a lot of buyers out there that are actually actively looking. Why hold off? I don't quite understand that. Actually, I do, because this is what the industry is told. September is the next best time to sell because everyone wants to be in before Christmas.
There's always a bounce, there's always a boom. Wait in the spring, that's when the buyers, there's a bounce, activity picks up. In the autumn, there's a boom, that's when activity picks up. Summer holidays, nobody's buying, that's rubbish, they are. And then of course we got the Boxing Day one where probably nobody is buying, but everyone launches their properties. If you need to sell your house, when's the best time to market it? It's when it's on the market.
Yeah.
Like, don't wait.
No, it's crazy, but again, this is, I suppose it is the problem with our industry. We are heavily guided, unfortunately, about what it's been like in the past. And for instance, isn't it, stick everything on Rightmove and wait for Rightmove to sell it, but that's what most agents do, isn't it?
Unfortunately, and that's what everyone thinks, that's what we do. But there is a lot more to selling houses. We agreed to sell yesterday, didn't we? I went out the evening before, did a bunch of viewings. We had a strategy to get that sold. We got 3 offers on the table and tied it up over asking price.
Yeah, but the market's quiet.
Not that we're experiencing. It's a tougher market. We had those boom years post-COVID, which you know more than anyone. It's just we have to work a bit harder to get sales.
That's an interesting point. Do you have to work harder?
Work smarter.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. It's again, because I used to be in the same boat as everybody else. It was the thing is, if you're going to talk a market down, if your agent is talking the market down, then they're not going to be. If you talk negatively about the market, then ultimately you're going to be portraying that to buyers, and ultimately then buyers are then going to be thinking the market is quiet. So why would they buy? If you've got an agent that's representing you there that's talking the market down, then I would seriously consider changing agents, because ultimately, if that's what they believe the market is, then that's what the market's going to be. And if you look at, as I said, July's and June's figures this month, we've exceeded target by over 25%.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like talking targets, as you well know, but even so, when we're looking at the sort of numbers game, they have been our 2 best months. Yet apparently the market's quiet.
Sales agreed is up over 16%
Mm-hmm.
on the first half of last year. So there is a lot of activity there. What people aren't realising is we've got a 10-year high for the amount of stock on the market.
Mm-hmm.
So buyers have more choice, they're not under pressure, they're able to take their time, they're probably viewing more and weighing up more options. So there isn't that pressure to get it tied up instantly.
It's really interesting because as you were saying that as well, and again, like I always do, I always tend to think on the spot and then things come into my mind. And I suppose this goes back to agents are probably quiet because what I'm seeing it locally at the moment. Properties go onto the market and within 2 to 3 weeks they're reduced.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems to be the same players over and over and over, where ultimately, if you're putting a property on the market 10% over, and some of these properties are being reduced by 10%, you are going to believe it's quiet because you're not getting any viewings. So ultimately, I can see why they're actually talking the market down, because ultimately all they're doing is overpricing, which is an issue within our industry. So yeah, you will be quiet, there will be less activity, and it's not the market that's doing that, that is the agents that are over egging the price because they need the listing for one reason or other. Is it ego? Is it commission? There's obviously been a case recently, isn't there, in regards to the Panorama show about two agencies and the tricks of the game. They only scratch the surface, in my opinion, there, and this goes back to this little saying here. This was happening 21 years ago. And for me, I wanted to change the perception of agents, and 21 years on, another article, another programme is highlighting the poor practices within our industry. Yet I can guarantee you now, we've recorded this in July 25, I'll be having the same conversation in July 2030. Because again, until our industry is regulated, we're going to continue with the same issues.
Totally agree.
And I don't want to talk agency down, because we work with some phenomenal agents, and there are some really, really good agents there I look up to, and I know, as I said, I do feel I set my bar high, but there are some really, really good agencies, and unfortunately it's not just the corporates. Unfortunately, the 2 that have been highlighted are probably two of the biggest companies in our industry.
Yeah.
But that's not for all of us. But there are smaller companies that do it as well.
This is the thing. If you've been brought up and trained within that kind of culture, there is no incentives for agents to do continual professional development or training, ongoing training. So that's the way you've always done it. Mm-hmm. So when you move on, you think that's how it's done. Mm-hmm. And it's actually become rife in our industry, I think, from people leaving the bigger chains mm-hmm. with the bad practice and going into smaller companies and not realising there is a better way of doing it. And exactly that, that's why I've come back into agency, is because I want to show people there's a different way to do mm-hmm. things.
Yeah. And I think, as I said, I agree fully with the fact that it is I don't necessarily always think it's the corporates. I think it's just the way some people are, and it's mm-hmm. the same in any industry. You get good and you get bad.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, ours is tarnished a little bit worse than many others. But
we've got to work harder at showing people that we don't live up to our reputation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this, did you want to talk about anything else on issues at the moment that are seen within? Should we talk a little bit more into the program that come about and the issues and conditional selling? Did you want to discuss that or?
Yeah. And overpricing, I think.
Yeah, so obviously we quickly touched base on that, haven't we? So, okay, let's talk overpricing then.
Yeah, it's happening. So we had the boom in 2021 and the race for space, and house prices went ridiculous. The stamp duty holiday as well helped that. And prices were climbing so rapidly. All that did was create like an artificial market. So because house prices grew sort of out of the way that they normally grow and they have gone much higher, the market has to adjust at some point so it levels off.
Mm-hmm.
So we've spent a few years where it's sort of been adjusting, and obviously we also had that Biz Trust mini budget that did bring house prices down. The trouble is agents, and I believe a lot of sellers' expectations is still that the house prices are rocketing up,
mm-hmm.
and they haven't taken into account what's actually been happening in the market. So we're seeing, I mean, I've been to one that apparently I undervalued by £175,000 from what my valuation. Agents aren't valuers, just to caveat that.
Yeah.
My recommendation of where to price it in the market, they actually listed £175,000 more than I said.
Mm-hmm.
So it's shocking. That house is still sat there unsold. They're reducing, but it's small increments. It's not enough to get them sold.
It's a really interesting point because I discuss this with every single. I generally don't think you can actually undervalue something. I think ultimately, if a property is worth 525 and you pitch it at 500, if it's worth 525, if you effectively market it and you have a strategy behind it, you will get 525. If you put it on at 500 and you take 500 within the first 24 hours to the first buyer, then yeah, technically you can't demonstrate that you've actually achieved the best price.
Yeah.
And this is what I see with a lot of agents is, oh yeah, we sold it within 24 hours. Great, what, to one buyer? This is another issue, funny enough, as well, because again, this is quite rife from where we are, is chain building. That, for me, is another area that is not brought up, where agents are particularly chain building to build several properties that are all sold within the same agency, benefiting only one person, which is the owner of the business. If that one person is the only person going around that property and they offer a figure, how do you know you've actually demonstrated you've got the best price? You can't. You can't, physically impossible. So that oh, we sold it in 24 hours is a load of rubbish in my opinion.
Exactly that, and it's similar to the conditional selling that
Mm-hmm.
came up on the Panorama programme. So buyers with the conditional selling of mortgage services, buyers that are cash buyers are put lower than people getting an in-house mortgage,
Mm-hmm.
and it's exactly the same with the chain building.
100%.
You're going to recommend your buyer whose house you're
Mm-hmm.
also selling over somebody that might be in a much better position.
It's quite funny because I remember a few years ago I was called out by my buyer who was my seller at the time, and ultimately the way I see it is we represent each seller individually, and they told me I should have looked after them, and it was a case of, well, I'll give everybody a fair opportunity. It would have been nice for us to actually chain build, it'd been great, but ultimately, was that in the best interest of the seller they were interested in? No, it wasn't. They weren't the better buyer. The individual going out, are they able to, and again, I suppose this again goes back to, I think it's poor practice. Do they actually understand how to have that conversation with a seller? I think a lot of them, I will completely put myself on the parapet. I used to be one of those several years ago, because again, the way I was told is just go and get it on. And I would never, ever undercut anybody in the sense of offering a disservice to the client, but ultimately it was just get the property on. And I think this is unfortunately again is something else that's driven that you must go out and get that listing.
I think as an industry we're terrified of honest conversations.
Yeah, got it.
It's not nice telling somebody bad news, but I would rather, when I'm sitting in somebody's front room, say it's not worth that and I can't sell it for that price, than take on an instruction and have the client disappointed in the service I'm doing.
But I think also it just highlights is that the individual is more interested in the property than they are the person, and ultimately if they actually knew how damning it could be by putting it on too high and then reducing it bit by bit. This is where I was going just a minute ago, is if you are a buyer looking for a property, and I ask everyone this single question, and if you're thinking this at this very moment in time, if you were looking for a property and you see that it was reduced, not even just once or twice or 3 times, what is the view of the buyer? And every single time it is, what is wrong with that property? Now you and I know, we can look at the data and go, there's nothing wrong with that property, it was too high, the agent's gone out and overpriced it. However, the buyer doesn't think that way. All they see is there's another issue. And this is the other thing I see online, just reduced, unexpectedly back on the market. All that is doing is highlighting to a buyer that this isn't a good property to buy.
Yeah.
That's just horrendous marketing.
Yeah, and it's lazy. And again, if you have these difficult, honest conversations early on, you know, we do get it wrong sometimes.
Yeah, I admit that, yeah. We're not perfect.
But if you know it's not working and you can see it's the price, then you've got to go back and you've got to say, I'm sorry, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, we got it wrong. We've got to do a price reduction. It's going to make you feel sick, but it's got to do that to get people through the door. And that, at the end of the day, you're not going to sell a property if people aren't coming through the door to see it.
And as I said, we've seen, I've been out to properties in the past and even now, like there's some that are sitting on the market, I thought we would have achieved X, I generally would have thought that based on the comparable data. But when you've got several properties now that have entered the market all at the same price or if not higher or lower and they're still not selling, it's demonstrating at this very moment in time that the actual figure that it's quoted at is probably not the actual price it should be. And on paper, it should be that value. But the market, there isn't a market there for it because there's so many properties on the market.
This is the thing, isn't it? I think, and some agents I include in this, don't understand the difference between the listing price and the sold price. We know that the Rightmove report that came out last week, is based entirely on listed data, whereas the Office of National Statistics is sold data, and they're about 100 grand apart on the average property. So going out with comparables of houses that are on the market unsold doesn't mean your house is worth that much money, and it's certainly not going to sell if all these other houses haven't sold at that price.
Yeah. For you, so we've had one recently where there's been several properties on the market at 350. Again, on paper, looking at it, it probably is 350, but we changed it up, but it offers over 325, and we still sold it close to 350, yet those other properties are still on the market at 350, not selling. And that was gone within 2 weeks.
I know, and that's the thing. I think when you're sitting in the living room explaining to people how an offers over strategy works, it's quite hard for them to get their head around because they're still thinking the listing price is the asking price and what it's worth. And they're like, why would anybody want to pay over that? But actually, when you've got several buyers that want it, it can go over a price band easily. So.
And look, it's and I've been in the same situation myself. So I can look at it from a buyer's perspective, and it is like a buyer will come to us, well, why didn't you put it on higher? Well, at the end of the day, we're here to actually advise on where we believe it should be pitched to sell in a reasonable time frame within 28 days and ultimately to get the best price. And that is unfortunately the best way of selling a property in this market, because there is so much data now that buyers have, and 7 out of 10 people won't view a house if they think it's overpriced.
Exactly that. Exactly that. Also, I don't understand if you go out and say that a house should be marketed for X price, and the seller says, "Great, we want to go with you, but actually, can we try it a bit higher?" Why you would say yes to that? It's like, no, we can try strategies. We could do the off-market approach, test it a bit higher, but just to bang it on Rightmove at a higher price isn't doing anyone favours. So we've got to, as an industry, have these honest conversations.
Yeah. But will we be having the same conversation in 5 years' time?
Probably in 10 years.
Unless we become regulated.
Let's hope.
Cool. Right, should we wrap that up?
Yep.
Coolio.